Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin Poo. In this episode 511, I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Stacy. That is at StacyPound89 on Twitter. Stacy, what's going on?
Well, I'm back on the East Coast. It's hot as balls here, man. You need some good weather.
Yes, it is quite unpleasant right now on the East Coast. Certainly very hot, and if you step outside, good luck to you. We're not here to talk about the weather. We're here to talk about the Knicks and basketball, and we will do that. But before we get started, I do have to make a few announcements. First, that Strickland has a YouTube channel where we watch this podcast. If you haven't done so already, please like, subscribe to the channel, leave comment. That'd be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise, which you can find on our website at www.strict.land. There's a link to the merchant store. There's all kinds of cool stuff on there, like t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it, we got it. Strickland also has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland's podcast that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to Takes from Obvious Bozo's podcast hosted by Andrew Steele, aka Dog, along with Saturday. You get access to the Discord conversation that gets you access to Strick and Roll, my pod that is no longer solo that I do with YC. You get access to that. You also get access to Takes from Obvious, or sorry, not Takes from Obvious, Strickland NFL, which you guessed it is podcast by the NFL that is hosted by Konstantin Metrikos and Desmond Novak. And you get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Marino, one of the best in the business. The further tiers, $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and a $100 tier. It's with a variety of additional benefits, like listening to the pod recording, merchandise discount to potentially go to a podcast alongside yours truly on a day, whether you choose to subscribe. Not necessarily possible without you. So, without further ado, let's get started. The Knicks have now officially hired Mike Brown as their head coach. That was not the case last time that we talked, and it wasn't even the case until this past weekend. So the Knicks have now officially appointed Mike Brown as their next head coach, the 32nd head coach in the franchise's history. He will receive a 4-year, $40 million contract per Ian Begley. So that's that. And yeah, he just had his introductory press conference today. I don't think there was too much to make of it. He was asked mostly kind of straightforward questions, broad questions. They did ask him about his philosophy. He mentioned that, it's important, I'm paraphrasing here, but that you have to kind of adapt your style to suit the personnel you have, which I'm sure many Knicks fans and maybe the Knicks themselves were looking for from the next head coach, that type of attitude. Um, he was asked several times about the wings on the team, talked about their length, their versatility, how he was excited to use them. So I thought that was interesting, given that right now Mikal Bridges has not signed an extension. I'm personally of the opinion that he will sign one, and I don't think there's too much off a rather big trade or a consequential trade, unexpected trade involving anybody, but I don't think that's on the cards. Um, but yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't know. It's not like there was a lot going on there in terms of he's not going to show you his hand. Oh yeah, the one other thing I think that it's worth mentioning. They did ask him about the assistant coaching staff, and he mentioned that it's going to, that's something that he's working on and talking to Leon about, and that they would take their time and assemble it. So my guess is that they will do like I don't I don't expect the coaching staff to be filled out ASAP. I think that they will take their time. I think they're going to try to get the best they possibly can because, look, I think if you want to build a collaborative atmosphere, then part of that is having people you actually want to collaborate with and delegate to. And, it's good to be judicious about that. There was some reporting that, it's unsure if Borrego will get out of his contract with the Pelicans. I still remain skeptical that the Pelicans had would say no if the Knicks offered them a boatload of cash to get Borrego out of his contract, given their general state of affairs of the organization.
That would not count against the cap, right?
No, nothing with the coaching staff ever counts against the cap. So,
or is there because what I remember in the draft is that the Knicks are out of cash, right? So
that only applies to player transactions, as far as I know. I don't think that applies to coaching stuff. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I haven't ever seen reporting to the other what to believe otherwise. Um, but yeah, I again, I don't think there was too much to glean from that press conference, and honestly, I think it's not really worth um, digging into it too much. But it was good to see him speak. It was good to kind of. I think you got a sense of the difference in the personalities between him and Tibbs. Not that Tibbs was like. I do think that some of his curmudgeonly kind of reputation was a little bit overblown. I just don't think that he is as personable as Mike Brown is. And I think you could get a sense of Mike Brown being a very personable guy during, the interviews that he did today. And, you can see how a guy like that interviews well. I think you can see kind of maybe that they wanted a different personality and that, he is that change they want to see. And philosophically, I don't think Mike Brown is like some drastically different coach from Thibodeau. I do not think that he, um, I think he is a little bit more old school. And just because his teams played fast in Sacramento, I'm not sure that they're going to play. I highly doubt the Knicks will play as fast as that Sacramento team did. I do think they'll play faster. That's something that he referenced a few times in the press conferences that he likes his teams to play fast. So I do think that they'll play faster. Um, but yeah, I mean, other than that, I didn't take too much from it. I don't think that anybody should read too much into anything that was said in an introductory press conference. Not that that will stop anybody. Um, but look, he's here to do the final job, right? He's here to bring a championship back to New York to lead the Knicks back to the top of the mountain. And, he didn't, there was no ifs, ands, or buts about that. There were no excuses made in the press conference either. He stated that very clearly, concisely. And, if there was any ambiguity about what the goal is and what the task is and what does success look like, I think that was answered.
Does this make you think Leon Rose should do a press conference? You told me
Uh,
with this one.
could literally never, could not care less anything about that.
But don't you think
More
it's
than
holding the Knicks back as an organization? I mean, the most important job now, you're adding on to all the pressures of being a head coach to talk to the media and be the spokesperson of the franchise. You don't think that matters?
No, I do not.
Um, I mean, I don't pay attention to too many of these. Look, I go on Mike Brown's track record. I've seen him thrive in diverse environments. Right, he gets coach LeBron, which is both a it's a very double edged sword. Um, he coached Lakers after Kobe was hurt. Um, he's been in difficult situations. He coached Sacramento with a flawed roster, and really helped transform Domantas Sabonis. I think one of the things that I liked about Kidd when the Knicks were, I mean, they obviously were interested, was the idea that he used a big in Giannis as a play creator, and I think the Knicks need to find a way to do that with Catmore. That's what enthuses me most about the trade or the coaching signing is that I think Brown can the way he used Sabonis. I'm not saying Cat is the same player as Sabonis. There are things that might make those things easier, right? We talk about. I don't think Sabonis is just a DHO merchant, but a lot of the assists, and that shouldn't count against them. If he gets assists on DHOs, I don't think we should count that against them because part of that is his gravity and the unpredictability of how he makes that play happen. And so using Cat that way is what intrigues me a lot. But Fizdale is a very. Would you agree that David Fizdale is more personable than Tom Thibodeau?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Fizdale was more personable than Tibbs, but what I would also say is that I thought there were quotes quite early on from Fizdale in his tenure that you were like, what are we doing? And then you combine that with some of the stuff you saw with like how personnel was being used. Um, and that was immediately like red flags. Like, major red
Yeah, I'm
flags.
not. I mean, I don't. We don't have to relitigate Fizdale. My point is like winning the press conference isn't winning more than that, and that's not a knock on Mike Brown. My point is, I look to his track record, which I think has a lot of reasons to be optimistic. I do think they should hire an offensive assistant. Borrego, I think, was their ideal. They can't get Borrego. I'm sure they have the intel to find another guy who can, mind meld with Brown a little bit. Um, but I don't pay too much attention to these conferences. They're going to give lip service. Tibbs said he wanted to play faster. Tibbs said he wanted to shoot more threes, right? And I think he tried to do that, but he wasn't willing to move away from things that ended up being blockers, where maybe he didn't think they were necessarily blockers. Um, I would, with Brown, I think it's the questions you're going to ask. Look, it's not too different. The Knicks have a clear philosophy, right? Or with their two coaching changes, in both cases, they hired a very experienced assistant, and they wanted to choose the lead assistant. I don't know if Brown may also like Borrego, right? And Tibbs might have liked Johnny Bryant, but Tibbs was a strong defensive coach with head coaching previous experience in multiple teams, and they hired him with an offensive and player development focused assistant. I think that's the formula they want to follow, right? Like the coach sets the culture and the effort and defense, and then the kind of strategy around generating shots. He will have a guy there who can manage those things. So that is what it echoes to me, and we'll see. I mean, the questions we want answered aren't going to be answered the regular season, right? Will you go deeper into the bench? Will you? I mean, there's a mixed bag. He's been willing to go to deep into the bench. He also was very curiously not playing Keon Ellis last season, when a lot of Kings fans, and the year before, when a lot of Kings fans and just general people were like, this is a pretty good player. And one of our biggest gripes with Tibbs was the lack of playing Deuce, not just because Deuce is some great player, but because he fits with the starting lineup so well. But that's your questions, right? How will he change rotations? How much will he listen to assistants? I think you have preliminary answers that he seems to be open-minded. We've seen from Sacramento that he incorporates that, and to the extent that he's built a coaching tree a little bit more than Tibbs has, right? Like Jordi Fernandez is a very well-respected coach now. So that may be a question, but how quick will you adapt when you're facing Rick Carlisle and you're evenly matched? Can you make the right adjustments? Those are things we don't know yet, and I don't think there was a coach where we would know if those answers or those questions were answered, right? So,
yeah, it's like a lot of the stuff we just don't have the answers to right now. I don't know that anything that could have been said or could have been done by now would have answered anything. I mean, they could hire a staff that we were like on paper is like, oh wow, this is great, and who knows, maybe a month into the season we're like, wow, these guys are fucking stupid. Like,
I mean,
we
that's
don't
how I
have.
felt about Fizdale. Honestly, I was very optimistic. I don't know if you were, but I was very optimistic in my heart.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't. It's very hard. It would require a lot for me to not be optimistic about a coach, just because I generally think most of these guys have resumes that are good. Like, it's very rare that I see a coach being hired and I'm like, wow, that's stupid. Like the Suns hired Budenholzer, and I was like, oh, that's a good hire. Didn't work out. Like, it just didn't work out. Most of these guys have good resumes. Most of them do a lot of good basketball work. Um, and it's, again, like it's like the Peter principle of, yeah, you can be great at everything other than being a head coach, like other than this job that you're about to take. So yeah, you could be a great assistant, a great video guy, a great development coach, a great whatever. You're great in the locker room, connecting with guys, but that doesn't always mean that you're going to end up being a great head coach. You can have everything else under your belt, but it doesn't mean you're going to be a great head coach. And the history of the NBA is littered with guys like that, right? Like Fizdale is definitely one, but he's one of many. There are so many coaches that you can look at and be like, this guy was supposed to be the next one, and then he ended up being a joke, right? Like, I mean, the Pacers had one of those guys, Bjorkgren, where they hired him.
Patrick Ewing was supposed to be the next head coach. He goes back to Georgetown and he really struggled, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah. It's not just the Knicks. It's not just people Knicks adjacent. It's everywhere around the league. You see it all the time. So you don't know until you know. I think it's good that Mike Brown at least he's got a baseline. It's not like they're hiring a guy that you truly don't have any idea what he's capable of. He has a baseline. I would venture to guess it's very, very unlikely the Knicks, even though, like, I do think that I think there's more risk than people like to believe with moving on from Tibbs, even if I did think it was the right time to move on from Tibbs, and I commend the decision to do it. Um, I think that he was a good coach. Like, there's no question about that to me. And it's a lot more familiar. Like, when you have the same guy in place for 5 years, it's easy to just focus on the downsides and the negatives, um, and ignore that, like, you don't just win a lot of games by accident. And that doesn't mean at all the credit goes to Tibbs, but you have to give him some of the credit. And um, there's always a risk for moving on from a guy like that for reasons that we don't know all the time. Like, we're not in the building, we don't know what the hell goes on behind the scenes or behind closed doors. And it's possible Tibbs kept things, kept guys in line and in check, and held the line in a way that other coaches would struggle with, and that won't be properly appreciated or seen until he's gone. Maybe Mike Brown is incapable of something behind the scenes and something that is hard to completely grasp. I'm a little bit suspect of that just because I don't think the makeup of this team is one that's like, again, like, I just don't think that this is a very dramatic team. Like, it just most dramatic incident of the Tibbs era was like basically players at various points expressing some level of communication, or like, in, in Calbridge's case, maybe not being happy. I was didn't know like, it's not that bad. Even if the players and coaches snap each other, that hasn't been an issue. So, how does Mike Brown negotiate this team's locker room and manage all the stuff that Tibbs had to manage? And not just with the players, but also just the organization in general, right? Dynamics with upper management and free. Those are things that we don't know exactly what Tibbs had to do or how all those relationships work behind the scenes, but obviously those are things that Mike Brown has to deal with now. I suspect that if you can have success in Sacramento, given their organization's kind of general trajectory and history under their current owner, I would suspect that coming into this Knicks team with a better roster, and to me, what is probably a much stronger front office, built out analytic staff, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I think it's fine. I think it's reasonable to be optimistic. And, that doesn't mean you need to start proclaiming, like, we're going to definitely win the championship and everything. The East is ours and nobody can compete with the Knicks. But, like, do I think the Knicks can win a championship? Yeah, I do. Do I think that Mike Brown has the ability to be a guy that can achieve that? I'm hopeful he is. He's never won a championship before. He has been to a finals, but he has never done it. So I can't know that for sure. I'd be lying to you if I said I was familiar with all of Mike Brown's idiosyncrasies as a coach, the way that we are so familiar with Tibbs, right? Like, we know Tibbs inside and out because he was our coach for 5 years. We don't know Mike Brown that same way. And we're not going to know Mike Brown that same way probably for at least a full fucking year as a head coach, maybe longer than that. But I think the one thing that just as, since the Knicks have moved on from Tibbs and all the stuff that has been reported at various places since then, and then they picked Mike Brown and stuff, his profile and everything. I just think it was very obvious the team needed a new voice. Like, that's really what it boils down to for me. I do not think that they could go through another Tibbs season
Do you
where
think that he was fired because of Deuce McBride?
no, I don't think he was fired. I
So do
don't
you
think it
think
was
that kind of a decision? Do you think how much of the part did that play in it versus the players being
probably very.
attached?
I think very minuscule. I think he got
I
fired
think.
because
Do you
it's
get
a
what I'm saying
bunch
though?
of
Like
fucking things that happened.
the philosophy of his lineups. How much was that a part of it versus he lost the team?
I don't think that. I don't think. I think it's more than that. I think it's easy to point to that, and that's the stuff that they like talked about collaboration and blah blah blah. And yeah, they want to. It's been leaked, right? They want a coach who is more willing to like play guys for development purposes and use the bench and blah blah. But like, I think you can put up with all of that if you're still getting the buy-in, if you're still seeing that stuff, if you're still if everybody in the locker room is happy and they're generally committed behind Tibbs and there's no murmurs of discontent and dissatisfaction with him as a coach. That clearly was not the case this year. It was like very, very evident. And, I think I think it says a lot actually about the professionalism of the team that they won 51 games and they went to a conference finals, all while it was seemingly very clear that he wasn't getting the best out of the individual players in a lot of cases. But more importantly, and I would say less so than that, he just wasn't getting the most out of the group. Like, there was just it's very obvious, be it and you can pinpoint that different ways, right? Like I don't think he ever connected with Mikal Bridges on a level that could extract the maximum from Mikal Bridges. Does Mikal Bridges need to own some of that? Yeah, he has to own a lot of that. Like he's still fucking here right now anyway. The Knicks gave up a lot of draft capital to get him. Yeah, he has to be better. And yeah, man, it's fine. Like I get it. Maybe Tibbs wasn't your cup of tea, but there's a new coach now. So there's no real excuse at this point. Like if the same type of, not as committed defensively at times as you'd like to see and this lack of willingness to go to the rim and all these things persist that are just annoying and flat out kind of like not in line with his career norms in a lot of ways, then yeah, you have to be concerned. And if you're the front office at that point, you probably need to look in the mirror and be like, yeah, we might have fucked this one up regardless of the coaches. But he has no excuses now. And I think, I would pretty much guarantee that Karl Anthony Towns was not some active sabot. I don't think any of these guys were active saboteurs towards Tibbs, by the way. I think this whole idea that like he got stabbed in the back and players fucking community against him is nonsense.
At
If they
two
if they
Brunson?
wanted if they wanted to mutiny against him, they had plenty of opportunities in the playoffs to just give up. They had plenty of opportunities to just give up, and they didn't. So I don't buy that for a second. I think it's horseshit. I think their professionalism through this all basically comes pretty much unblemished to me. Like even Bridges, his shit, like whatever you want to say about it, the guy played. He covered more miles than anybody in the league. He played more minutes than anybody else in the league. Like it is what it is. The guy is there every night. It's hard to be like, yeah, he didn't put it. He just mailed it in for because he didn't like tips. That's nonsense. So I think that, but they clearly just were not happy. They were not a happy group. I don't know how else to put it other than that. It was tangible. You could feel it. Like they were not the same team that they had been in previous seasons under Tibbs. And we'd seen past seasons under Tibbs, like where things aren't always great, but you kind of got through it to the other side. And generally, you didn't feel the internal vibes of the team were off at all. Maybe in the 2021-22 season for sure, but other than that, I think it was pretty solid. And that was not the case last year. And there's less margin for error now because you're not where you were in 2021-22, and you don't have the kind of you don't have the margin for error you did then purely on the fact that you've shipped out assets. You were pot committed. You have an older team, not an old team, but an older team, a team that is in their prime and is clearly has been built with the idea and the ambition of we can win a championship. So the goals are higher, the standard is higher, the expectations are higher, and I don't think they had another season to be like, well, maybe can Tibbs reach this group? And if maybe if you're sitting there and you're like, well, we gave up all this stuff for Mikal Bridges, but Mikal Bridges and Tibbs don't get along, So now you're going to trade Mikal Bridges to suit Tibbs. Like, I don't know. I just think it would have required a lot. I think there was more to it than just lineup usage and experimentation. I think that was part of it. I think Tibbs probably. I think he rubbed people the wrong way in the
But it's
organization.
not
You're there for.
separate, right? It's all interrelated, right? If
That's
Mike
what. Yeah, it
Mikel,
is because you're stubborn. He's a stubborn guy. If you don't listen to people in the organization when they're telling you, "Hey, this guy might be like," and this is again, like I've talked about this before. It's not just. This is not the first fucking year where Tibbs did shit that didn't make sense, or did shit that you're 100% sure other people in the organization are like, "What the fuck are we doing?" Like I guarantee you during that 2021-22 season, there are people like scouts, for example, who are like, hey, we picked Quentin Grimes in the first round, and the coach said he fucking liked him. Why the fuck can't this guy get minutes while we're playing like guys that can't fucking move on the perimeter? Like, and we're not getting any juice out of this team anyway. Why can't he get minutes? Why can't Deuce McBride get minutes? Why, like, and you can keep going on. Like, you can look through the seasons. Yeah, at the end of the day, I just, it was time to move on from Tibbs. I think they needed a new voice. I think there was a lot of Tibbs related fatigue within the organization at multiple levels. And, at that point, it's kind of, what are you going to do? It would have required a major adjustment from him. Was he willing to make those adjustments? Did they trust him to make those adjustments? Maybe not even just in terms of tactics, but personality wise, willingness to listen to people, all these type of things that, I don't know that you can trust that, even if Tibbs is like, yeah, I'm good with that. I'm on board with that. If they wanted input in his staff, is that something he's on board with? Like we're already getting reports today from Stefan Bondi that Rick Brunson won't be the associate head coach. He'll be demoted effectively. So push down the kind of pecking order of the coaching staff.
so he's going to be in the roommate's pod now.
What?
He's going to be on the roommate's pod. He's going to take Matt Hillman. You said he's demoted, right? So
yeah, okay. So I don't think that the associate head coach thing is going to be his. And was that something that would have? I mean, I have no idea again what the dynamics were for Tibbs or whatever. But is that if he was insistent on Brunson being his associate head coach or something? I don't know, but clearly I don't think that's his best role. And we all saw it the entire year. The coaching staff was not up to snuff, and that it needed to be refreshed and replenished with just new ideas, new minds, fresh fresh ideas, I guess maybe. So yeah, I don't know. Am I up? So yeah, I am optimistic about Mike Brown, but that doesn't mean that's we'll just have to see because optimism only goes so far.
yeah, my feeling, I honestly don't think it was the personality. I actually think you look at all these polls, right? You've seen so many polls where players are like, "Oh, I don't want to play for Tibbs," blah blah blah. He's the place coach I at least want to. I think everybody, even Mikel and Kat, have spoken highly of Thibodeau. So I think it had less to do with that. It's not a toxic.
Are they gonna? Are they going to say something negative?
Yeah,
They're not going to be like Tibbs.
but I
fucking
think
sucks.
there's enough evidence though from players who go out of their way to praise Tibbs, and I would include Kat in that. That I don't think that's.
Do you think that they went out? I don't think they went out of the way. I don't think they went out of the way. And I don't.
Even Grimes
like with Kat. I don't. Yeah, but I don't think Kat is going. Kat's just like gonna be nice about. When's like Kat's like nice about like Embiid. If you ask him a fucking question about Embiid, he's nice about he takes the high road about shit all the time. So Kat saying nice things about Tibbs, like to me, that's just who Kat is. Like he's just not going to talk shit about people publicly ever. Like he barely does it. Barely seems to express stuff like that privately or whatever. But either way, like I just don't think Kat is gonna do that. And I don't know. I didn't think Mikal Bridges really ever said anything very much glowing about Tibbs. It's just
my point is,
prepared.
I don't think it's this like you mentioned personality. I don't think it's that. I think it is the rotations he played. Like all of the criticisms, the criticism Mikal offered were not like he works us too hard at practice or he's a dick. They were like, well, maybe we should play the bench more. And I think it's possible that, he was both a guy who related. I do think one of my theories is that I think he improved a lot in terms of relating to actual players. We saw what happened in Minnesota. He avoided those, so that's where I would be like,
Yeah,
I don't
I
think
don't.
it's a personality thing. I think it was his actual decisions that players are like,
Totally, I cannot fundamentally disagree with it. He did not handle conflict ever in New York, ever, not once, never. He never took it head on. He let Julius Randle be a
or he
fucking
nipped
dick.
it in the bud.
No, he never. But that's not actually. But that's not handling anything. That's just being. He like Derrick Rose talked about this. He's like he benched me. This is Derrick Rose. Okay, this is a guy who I think Tibbs was like a groomsman at his wedding or something. Like he literally said Tibbs never talked to him about it. He just came in one day. He was not in the rotation anymore. There was no conversation had. Evan Fournier talked about it. You know, it didn't matter when Evan Fournier bitched about it because we were like, fuck that guy. But the point is, like, he never talked about it. Kemba Walker mentioned it the year before that there was no conversation had about him being demoted from the rotation altogether. Like, this is after the 2021-22 season, where Julius Randle was a massive, massive dickhead the entire season. That summer, who went to go see Julius Randle and basically confront him about his shitty attitude? It wasn't Tom Thibodeau. It was Johnny Bryant. You can look at in 22-23, like when you see stuff like you never saw an instance of him genuinely challenging a player or stepping to a player or holding them accountable. Like,
Well, definitely not a seasoned player, right? He was willing
yeah,
to challenge Quickly and Grimes and those guys. But
yeah, but that's fucking, who cares about that? That's like small potatoes, man. Oh, you're getting mad at the rookie scale player. Cool. That's different, man. How about when Josh Hart's playing like a fucking moron? Can you hold him accountable? Because I didn't see it once this year. I didn't see it once. Please, I mean, the only time we saw it is we go down 2-0 in the fucking playoffs against the Pacers, and then finally he benches Hart. But guess what? It didn't really matter because he still played
he
Hart.
had that verbal argument with Hart during the regular season,
And he put him back in the fucking game. Who cares? That's not holding somebody accountable. That is not confronting anything. That is not nipping anything in the bud. That is not managing a locker room. That's not managing personalities. That's not managing egos. That's why every third option the Knicks had constantly bitched about their role, because his system, the way he plays, and that's fine. Like, if this is how your system is, right? I mean, it's not fine, but it is what it is. If your system is basically that, in a lot of ways, your third option maybe isn't going to get so involved in on-ball creativity, and you're not going to run a bunch of plays for them or whatever, that's fine. It is what it is. But if you have players that are constantly kind of like not happy in that role or not comfortable or not thriving in it, and the one guy that I would say like really, really was like super comfortable maybe in that role was Dante, who was just like very simple role for him, right? It's like, hey, just fucking, if you get the ball,
lizard brain.
yeah, jack up the three. Like, it doesn't matter. But like, and I'm not going to sit here and blame Tibbs for anything related to RJ Barrett. I have no problem with how he treated RJ Barrett. I think he gave RJ Barrett a lot of latitude. I think he got him a lot of touches. I'm not speaking to that. What I am saying is, if a player feels that way, do you think that Tibbs is the type of coach that has a conversation with them about it? And it's like, hey, like, I get that, like, this is not maybe what you like. What would you like to do? How can we get you? Like, that's not, I just don't see that. I don't see that at all. And I think we've seen multiple cases of guys being unhappy. Like, I'll put it this way, and I'll just leave it at this. Obi Toppin plays like 20 minutes a night now. Grimes, I don't know what the hell he played this year, but let's just stick to Quentin Grimes, because the Obi thing, do I think that Tibbs got the most out of him? No, I don't. Do I think that Tibbs getting the most out of Obi Toppin would have materially changed much for the Knicks? I don't. So whatever, shit happens. I'm not one to care too much about that. Like, if there's anything you can say, that to me is more on the front office than Tibbs. Like, they drafted a guy who just did not really ever mesh with what Tibbs does.
They didn't know Randall was going to blow up. I think that
Yeah,
was
yeah, it is what it is. But even if Randall hadn't blown up, right? Like, was Obi ever going to be a guy for Tibbs? I'm very skeptical. Doesn't really matter. Neither here nor there. That's just one I'm not going to put on Tibbs. Even if I agree that, yes, Tibbs maybe didn't get the most out of Obi Toppin. It's also like, who cares to some extent. With Grimes, I think it's a little bit interesting because to me, that's a player who clearly was in a mental funk, whatever was going on at the start of the 23-24 season. Um, maybe he was disappointed in his role not expanding. Maybe he's disappointed in not getting more touches. Maybe he's losing confidence in his shot. I have no clue what the hell it was. And then you make the trade. You dump OG, or not dump OG. You trade quickly in RJ for OG. Presumably, he should have more latitude, and that opens up some touches offensively, and blah blah blah. And instead, he's already been moved to the bench at that point, which is fine. That happens. You can change a guy's role, but his role never really expands, and it just kind of stays where it is, and he's unhappy, clearly, and then they end up dumping him. And, a lot of that you got to put on Grimes. I don't think he handled the competition well of like having a Dante DiVincenzo come in and be somebody who was not just some bum, like actual guy that he had to compete for and was probably nipping at his heels in practice for minutes. But like, I think there is something to the usage of Grimes where it was like, you go back to that 23-24 season, watch how it started. He basically never closed halves. He never closed the first half, never closed the second half, almost all the time. He was at like 22 minutes a game or something like that. This is for a starter. And when you never get the opportunity to do those things and you constantly see, okay, well, RJ can play like shit, but he closes games a lot. Josh Hart will always close games no matter what, it seems like. Quickly seems to get, whether I'm not even saying Quickly didn't deserve it, right? But Quickly, he closes games more often than I do. There is something to the notion of like his inability to keep these fringe players involved and mentally kind of engaged. And to me, that is something that speaks to the lack of communication in some ways to him, and willingness to trust and adapt, and those are the things that I point to with Tibbs, and I probably am not explaining this well at all, but those are the things I look at with Tibbs, and I'm like, that is where I feel like I don't think he held guys accountable, and I don't think that he did a good job of keeping the group totally involved. If there was any, like, if you were upset with your role under Tibbs, there was no point where he was going to be like, okay, well, come to my office, let's talk about it. What can we do? How do I keep you involved? What would you like? There was none of that. It was just like, hey, I'm the coach. This is what we do. This is what I think you are the best at doing. This is what I think your best role is. This is what I think gives us the best chance to win games. And that's how we're going to operate, whether you like it or not. And to me, there's a limitation to that. And I think there were clearly points throughout his time in New York where players were unhappy due to that type of kind of my way or the highway type of coaching.
Yeah, I just differentiate that from personality, I guess. Like, personality to me is like, I think they all like.
But that's part of the same thing, right? Like, if you're not willing to,
maybe I'm differentiating personality. I think everybody liked Tibbs. I don't think he was a dick to people. I think his decisions probably left a lot to be desired. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think there are people that probably didn't like Tibbs, but I don't know how many of those people. Like, I doubt Obi Toppin cares much for Tibbs. To his credit, he hasn't ever really ever said anything about it since he left. So
that's kind of what Obi is, right? But my point is, I actually think a lot of players bought in a way that you were told they wouldn't, right? So do I think they probably loved? But I think the things that people talk about is he yells a lot. He's a hard ass in practice. That's the only distinction. I don't think that was a big factor because I imagine Mike Brown would be one too. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't care about the screaming thing. I think the screaming thing just falls on deaf ears after a certain point. If you're like, who cares, dude? You're not gonna like change anything you're doing here. And that's that. Like, who cares if you yell at Josh Hart when you know that Josh Hart's still gonna go back in the game? Who the fuck cares? And how does that even, like, forget how that impacts other guys, how they feel about it. How do you think at some point, if you don't hold the guy accountable, then you see the slippage in their game the way that we saw the slippage in Josh Hart's game. Like, he was not focused on details. He constantly fucked up shit. It's just, you saw it. You could visibly see it, and you could see the impact. and nothing was done. Cool. You yelled at him once on national TV during a Lakers game, and then guess what? You came out of the timeout, and Josh Hart was still in the game. So what does that do for anybody? And I'm not saying like you need to bench guys constantly either, but that's how you hold. Like minutes are your fucking. That's your carrot and your stick if you're a coach. If you don't use it to like, hey, you're playing like a fucking jackass right now. I'm taking you out. Hey, you're playing great. You're gonna play more right now. I mean, that's all we're asking for here, and we didn't see any of that this year. You can argue we lost game one of the Pacers series in part because of that, because he pulled fucking Deuce and Mitch, who were playing great, to put back in Hart
Well,
and
Mitch was in foul trouble too, wasn't
no, not in game one. You put back in Hart and who cares if he's in foul trouble? There's like 5 minutes left in the game. Just let him foul out then at that point. You're
he?
up
You're
20,
also dealing with Hakamich, right? So
but
that
you
one
were
I
up.
got a little bit.
We were up 20. What are you talking about? There's no Hackamich going on. We were up 20.
Yeah, so if you're in the penalty, then they would be
But you
motivated
were
to
up.
foul Mitch.
You were up 20 because the guy was in the game. That's when you made the run. Like you made the
Yeah, but
run
it's
because of the
different
guy.
when they can just erase any offensive possession, right? I mean,
I
that
mean,
was
I think that's fucking. If you want to give him that credit, you can. Do not think that was part of his thought process at all.
well, I mean,
Uh,
he should have been starting Mitch. That's my thing. But I do think like there's something to like the idea that all right, after 5 minutes, if there's proof of concept, maybe you have other guys. That's all.
Either way, I'm just not going to agree with you. I think that was a terrible decision, and I'm not going to blame him for losing the game because you're up 20 with whatever the fuck it was, 4 minutes, 5 minutes left. You should close it out regardless of who's on the floor. Um, but that's kind of the point. Like you went back to your okay, got to get my starters back in, and that's that, and it blew up in your
Definitely
face.
felt less like a conscious decision and more like this is just what I do, right? Like an
Yeah,
algorithm. So
yeah. So I don't really yeah. To me that's exactly the type of coaching that they need to move on from and needed to move on from, and
and we don't know if Mike Brown won't be that. That's I guess the biggest question. He has this rep. I talked to people that were like, "Is this really an upgrade?" We got a defensive coach who's coached at other teams, has won the big one. Um, the one time he did make the finals, he had a player who rarely missed the finals in his prime, right? I think that's just the question that we're just not going to get the answers to. I think you've watched more of the Kings than I have. Do you think Mike Brown will be the kind of guy who can start Deuce when it's needed, who will go and play Pacom Dadier maybe in a random Tuesday in February, lean into that if it works? Um, you know, do you see those things as differences with Mike Brown? Because I think on the surface everybody looks at him as the same kind of coach, old school defense. Yeah, so didn't play Keon Ellis. Curious from what you've seen in Sacramento, like how optimistic you are about because those are even creative offense. I think is secondary to just playing better lineups and being more adaptable with them.
I mean, I don't care if he starts Deuce or not. Just play him when it makes sense.
But
That's it.
it speaks to a larger issue, right? It was Deuce this year, is Alfred Payton before, it's Alec Burks the year after that.
No, but what I'm saying is that's Tom Thibodeau because you know who starts. Generally speaking, they're going to play a lot of minutes, and he will stick with them regardless. I don't think all coaches operate like that. Like I don't know how Mike Brown coaches. Maybe he does the same shit. I don't know. But I also think that it's very like it's normal for other coaches to be like, oh, okay, this lineup is working today. Great. If it's not, I know I have Deuce. Deuce is playing well. Okay, he's going to play more tonight. Like it's about adjusting quickly in game. And you know, yes, obviously, if over the course of time one lineup is bad and a lineup with Deuce or with Mitch or with fucking whoever, it doesn't matter, Clarkson, Yabusele, if that's outperforming your hand-picked starting group consistently, then yeah, you should make a lineup adjustment. But the more important thing is to recognize that stuff in game flow and adjust accordingly, which was
And you
the
think
main
Mike
problem
Brown
with Tibbs.
is more capable of that than Tibbs? That I think is to me the biggest question.
I would be very, very hopeful that he is because if he's not, then I don't know why they fired Tibbs. Like they fired Tibbs for a reason. Part of that can be personality, but part of that was obviously also tied to decision making and in-game decision making. So if you get back and it's broadly very much the same type of thing where you're like, why are we playing our bad lineups more than our better lineups? Then yeah, that's a problem. I would just be optimistic because the Knicks are not a stupid organization. So that would be my optimism.
And that's the thing, something a lot of people don't believe.
I don't care. Like I don't. I just don't. I don't.
I mean, do you
Like
think that's all the concern trolling we've seen and all that shit? Is that literally all because they think it's still 2005 and we got Isaiah Thomas at the helm, or do you think there's more to it than that? Do you think some of it's justified?
who was anybody suggesting Tom Thibodeau was doing a fucking bang up job before he got fired? Other than like the same people that were acting like it was a crime that he got
Probably
fired.
Michael Pena.
Yeah. No, he obviously thought the Knicks sucked and that it was a bad that the Knicks won game one.
Well, the argument would be the Knicks sucked because of their roster, not Tibbs.
Right, and that's
The
fine.
motherless roster that was in solid.
But you're answering the point. Fuck, Stacy, you're answering the point. Are people trolling?
I'm leading the question, bro. I'm setting you up. I'm giving you the fucking alley-oop, baby.
That's what I'm saying. So yeah, it's obviously that is trolling. That is the point. Like, yeah, it's not realistic to just be like, oh, well, Brown is the same. Maybe Brown is the same thing. That's so not like really a useful talking point because it's like you have to try to get better, right? Like you don't stop. You're not like, oh, well, Tibbs is good, and you know what? If I don't think Tibbs is good enough anymore to win a championship, I shouldn't try because the next guy might not be as good enough either. Like, no, if guess what? If Mike Brown's not good enough, and we determine that after a year or two, then we should move the fuck on from him too. Like, this is not complicated to me. This is very, very straightforward stuff. If a guy isn't good enough, you move on. How people judge that can vary. People can have very different ways to judge if somebody's good enough.
But I'm asking from what you've seen of Mike Brown.
I cannot answer this question definitively. All I can answer this is this.
Yeah, that definitively, probabilistically,
whatever. I 100% believe this. If you flipped Mike Brown's resume and Kenny Atkinson's resume, just flip them. Nobody would be suggesting that hiring this man was a terrible, like if all of a sudden if Mike Brown has Kenny Atkinson's resume, and Kenny Atkinson at the time that he gets hired by the Cavs, he has Mike Brown's resume. Not a single fucking person would be suggesting that Kenny Atkinson was a bad hire or he can't he's an incapable hire, a poor decision. Oh, why did they fire JB Bickerstaff?
Yeah, I don't think anyone say it's a poor decision, right? It's the question is this different? I think if you think this is a good coach, Brown is in the same mold.
What my point is, but my point is this: is if the Knicks, let's say Kenny Atkinson doesn't get the Cavs job last year, right? Let's just say he doesn't get it, so he's still out there, and the Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau and hired Kenny Atkinson, right? I think people would be largely probably like more optimistic about it, or they would be singing Kenny Atkinson's praises and all these type of things. Look at their resumes as coaches. Why is it that one guy has constantly been feted as this great option as an ex head coach?
You can say the same thing with Tibbs, though, right? I think the fact that Brown has coached 3 different teams and has had success,
but his resume is better. Like he has had more success. He's
also had more opportunity.
He had more success in his first stop than Kenny Atkinson has. And Kenny Atkinson, Kenny Atkinson had Kevin Durant and fucking Kyrie Irving and all these guys. And then guess what? The inmates ran the asylum. He couldn't handle it because he's a fucking pushover. Maybe I don't know. I have no clue. But my point is, every excuse in the book is made for that guy. Every excuse, and that's fine. I think he's a good coach. I would not suggest that everything. I think it would be foolish for people to be like, oh well, they lost in the second round, so Kenny Atkinson sucks. Okay. I can have that nuance with Kenny Atkinson. For some reason, with Mike Brown, a lot of people are deciding right now there should be no nuance. You look at his situations. I'm not going to go through it again because I've done it 50 fucking times. Go look at his situations he's gone in and head coach. Go look at everything he dealt with. Go look at the.
And I think this is what makes it a different case from other. This is not retreads is a very difficult word for me to read. By the way, I'll just leave it at that. But you look at a guy like Larry Brown, right, or even a guy like Patino. This is not that kind of retread. I think you're hinting at this where, LeBron it's a whole thing, coaching him the most double-edged, pointy-ass sword on both sides that you could ever imagine. I mean, even Spoelstra when he was in Miami until LeBron left, everyone's like, "Oh, he doesn't do shit." Um, so I think that's why me and you, but I think most people look at it as, well, he's defensive coach. He was at 3 other places. He can build good teams. And if your whole reasoning is that Tibbs cannot get you over the top, why did you hire a guy who's that's his MO as well? Right? I think that's the kind of pushback.
But you would literally have this exact take on any coach then at that point. So basically, what you're saying is, no coach they should have kept Tibbs because no other coach in the market had a championship. Oh, then actually, you know what? There's one. No, there's one. Budenholzer, who fucking nobody wanted and nobody would have suggested was a good hire. So like that's a stupid, moronic way to judge any coaching hire, and it's a very obvious, it's a very clear and like it's just a very clearly disingenuous thing that is happening. Oh well, you don't know. What if Mike Brown's okay? If Mike Brown doesn't succeed, guess what? He doesn't succeed. I don't know how to answer. Okay, then we should probably go get another coach. And you know what? Maybe at that point you need to go get another front office. I don't know. But the idea that they should just stay with Tibbs because the next guy they tap might be not a championship coach is asinine. Like that is not the logic. You either believe the guy is good enough to win a championship with, or you move the fuck on, right? Because the Knicks are not like in this development timeline right now. If they were in like
that binary though,
yes, if you are pot committed to the level the Knicks are, you are basically saying we are trying to win the championship. So
with this roster, right? We're not. There's not like a specific. There's not a thing we can do to make it work with Tibbs at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, I just think that it shouldn't matter. Like, do you think this team? If you think this team has the ability to win a championship, if you're like the talent we have, this team can win a championship. That's it. Then the coach is judged on that, and that doesn't mean to me. This is just me. I think there are ways you cannot win a championship, and at the end of it, you might still feel like, yeah, we didn't get it done, but I wouldn't put that on the coach. I mean, generally the coach is going to have to bite the bullet no matter what, but you might think about it and be like, yeah, you know, actually that guy wasn't the reason we didn't win. But I don't know. I certainly did not have much confidence that Tibbs could ever get us over the top, really. I think the bracket opened up for us in a way that was unexpected in a lot of ways, especially the nature of the comebacks against Boston. Then you got to play the Pacers, who I still think, like, kudos to them. They played a hell of a fucking series and had made a run to the finals and all that shit and pushed it to Game 7. I think the Knicks should have won that series. I think they are a better team. I think they have better talent.
That's not the first. I think there's 2 series. Miami and Indiana were the most infuriating. Indiana last year was not, and Atlanta was not. I didn't put Atlanta on Tibbs. I didn't put Indiana last year on Tibbs. Indiana this year and Miami 2 years ago. Yeah, I think those are, and that's 2. That's Doc Rivers stuff, right? So
yeah, so it is what it is. Like I'm over the Tibbs thing. I don't have any fucking desire to talk about Tibbs anymore. So let's move on.
I mean, what I was trying to get at is like, what can we glean from Sacramento? Do you think he will use? Let's start with this. Do you think he will use Karl-Anthony Towns the way he used Sabonis? Or are there things we can draw from there?
I mean,
more DHOs, more kind of.
I think you'll get more 5-out lineups. Like that's what I can.
Well, Sabonis isn't 5-out though; he doesn't really shoot, right?
So, yes, but if your center isn't 5-out but can handle the rock, then you get some semblance of 5-out spacing.
So do you think we'll see more DHOs? Do you think we'll see Cat more as a passer?
I think you'll see more. I don't think you'll see as much as you see in Sacramento because Cat isn't the ball handler and passer in a lot of ways. That's Sabonis is. He's not a screen. He's not the DHO guy that Sabonis is. So you'll see more. I don't think you're going to see the same offense. And I just think people are. I'm just gonna like. There's nothing in Mike Brown's history to suggest that what he did in Sacramento is the only way he coaches.
Yeah, but it would be hopeful because Sacramento, like the Knicks, this is why I was intrigued by Malone, right? The Nuggets won a championship with a subpar defender at point guard and a subpar defender at center. I think our center is not as good as that center. I think our point guard is a lot better than their point guard on offense. So, these are the kind of parallels. It's the same thing in Sacramento, right? Fox has never been, I think he's capable of being a good defender. He never has been, though, right? So But Brown made it work, and the surrounding talent wasn't as good. So it's not so much to say that you want him to replicate Sacramento here. The question is the good things that he's done. Like, what are those things that we can expect?
I just don't. I think this is. I can't even answer this question. I'm not trying to like avoid it. I just think people are. Are not. It's not you or. I keep saying this whole Sacramento thing. This roster isn't the same. This is a totally different roster than Sacramento. Look at Sacramento's roster they had. They didn't have a good fucking big man other than Sabonis. So the idea,
Well,
like,
yeah, but
so you,
that's we don't have a good big man other than Cat. I mean, well,
we
okay,
don't.
that's fair, but okay, that's fair, but it's a very different thing. That's my point. Like, you do
That
have that kind of big man, and he maximized him, and it was a
you
big
can
man who's not good on defense. So I think that's why it's relevant, right?
right,
Like,
but
how
that
do you get the most out of Cat? Well, Sabonis might be a good blueprint, or at least what he did with him. Right?
I just don't think that's fully accurate though, because Cat can play the four, Cat can play the five. Sabonis cannot play the four.
I'm not
Sabonis,
limiting it, but I'm saying
I'm
when he is playing
I'm
the five,
I'm trying to answer your question. Sabonis can't play the four, so you had to play him at the five. That's it. There's no other option. Had to play him at the five. You had to. There's no fucking way Sabonis can play the four. And maybe he could if you go get like a Kristaps Porzingis or a Miles Turner. Oh no, you can't do it with Miles Turner
or
because we
Wemby,
already saw that. Yeah, we already saw that fucking happen in Indiana. It didn't work. Cat can play the four. Cat can play the five. Cat can do both of those things. This fundamentally changes what it means for him to maximize Cat and more importantly, maximize the team. Will you see some of the stuff that you saw that him use in Sacramento to unlock Sabonis and open up the offense? Yeah, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. No, why would you not? Of course you will. But I don't think it's all going to be the same. This is a guy who, prior to his time with Golden State, and then in Sacramento that he implemented more of, he ran a lot of Princeton action. So he used double bigs quite a bit, all the time. I mean, as most coaches did back in the late 2000s and early 2010s. But he had a lot of success. I mean, not a lot of success. I should temper it a little bit. But I thought the job he did with the Lakers was pretty underrated because that was a pretty tough situation. But he actually had to, he was trying to put the ball
and
more
this
in
the
Biden's
Lakers
hands.
situation, if I recall correctly, was Kobe got hurt, and it was like Lonzo and Ingram and Hart and all those guys.
No. That's he's way before that.
So it's like Russell and Brooke
No,
Lopez.
he took over for Phil Jackson. Like
There's still
he
Kobe and Gasol. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, Kobe, Gasol, Bynum, Odom. Like he had all those guys, or actually, I don't remember. He might not have had Odom. Odom might have been gone. I think he was gone. But like
In more
it
ways
was
than
the
one.
different team. He played double bigs. Like I think it's more. And even with Golden State played a lot of Draymond with Looney, right? Like that was a thing they did. And obviously, Cat is not Draymond, and Mitch isn't Looney, and it's not the same thing. But the idea is, I mean, in some ways, that's even more limiting offensively than what the Knicks have available to them in
Neither one
Cat
of
and
them is very
Mitch. So
fast on the ball.
right. So I think that it's looking. I think people should not over-index so much on what he did in Sacramento because I think that was a lot of it had to do with the personnel he had available to him. And I do think that he was frustrated as time went on with the lack of improvement in the personnel available to him. And you know, um, it is what it is. It ended the way it did. It's not like they pulled up a bunch of trees after he left and had a bunch of success. So maybe that'll change. I don't know. I'm not optimistic based on their offseason. But I would not go too crazy trying to like figure out how our team will play like the Kings team because I don't think we will play exactly like the Kings team. I think
Okay,
that
let me ask.
they will pull stuff from it. I think they'll play faster. They'll probably run more DHOs. They'll definitely have actual 5-out lineups instead of whatever the fuck went on with our team last year.
Shoot more threes.
Yeah, I think they'll definitely shoot more threes. He talked about having proper spacing today. I think that was a huge fucking issue last year where it just felt like there were constantly guys cutting into the same place, standing next to each other. That was an issue. So those are the things I'm looking for: more flow, more movement in half court sets, not just like stagnant stuff. And you know, I to me the Knicks don't have the personnel to be some like transition juggernaut. I don't think they are going to be some third in the league type pace team or something like that. But can they be better than, consistently bottom five or worse? Like, yeah, I think so. I think you'll see that. I think you'll see gains. Like, Can you be more of a league average shooting team in terms of 3-point volume versus 27th or whatever the fuck it was? Like, yeah, I think you'll see that. And I think those are the games that you want to see. I don't think it involves us playing exactly, though, or even necessarily a majority. I don't know that we're going to play like and copy 90% of what he ran in Sacramento.
Yeah, I don't think that was the essence of the point. I think we want to know what this team is going to look like next season. So let's kind of get to something maybe you would rather, or you would. Do you think he will? I mean, it's probably easier to tell things like will he hold players accountable, right? So Josh Hart is, missing rotations is the first quarter of a game against the let's say Celtics in round one, and the motherfucker is just out of it, right? Like we've seen so many times for the first 2 minutes of a game. How does Mike Brown handle that differently than Thibodeau, or have you seen anything that would shed some light on that?
I mean, I definitely think that he would pull him from the game if he felt like he was.
Can you point to examples different, or is it just something you're saying this is a baseline that
he's done that shit with like Monk? He did with Keon Ellis, who everybody's like, oh my god, Keon Ellis. And yeah, you could say he's different. Okay, but he did it with Monk.
Yeah, but Tibbs did that with Quickly.
He did it with Monk. He did it with Monk. He did it with Monk. Josh Hart is not De'Aaron Fox.
But he is closer to Monk. That's fair.
Yeah, he's done it with Monk. So yeah, I think he would definitely do that. Like, I again, like it doesn't matter what I say, and it really doesn't matter what any of us think until we actually see it happen. That's it. Like we're gonna have to wait to see it happen. I can sit here and tell you, oh yeah, I love this guy and he's gonna do all these things. You know, who knows? I thought Tibbs would fucking love Frank Ntilikina. He barely played the fucking guy, right? Like you never know until the guy takes the job. And we see. I mean, I think there are probably Kings fans who are like, oh, Mike Brown will love Keon Ellis. This guy's a fucking ball hawk on defense. Like, of course Mike Brown's gonna love him. Yeah, but I guess Keon Ellis doesn't stick to the game plan. So yeah, the plus minus stuff is great, but don't stick to the game plan. That's going to piss him off. It's going to cost him minutes, and it did cost him minutes. Was that the right decision for Mike Brown? Probably not. But I also don't think that we have so Josh Hart.
I mean, does that say anything about Deuce? Right? Is he going to play Deuce? I think that's a question. People are drawing that parallel, Deuce and Keon Ellis.
I mean, I don't think Deuce gambles, so that wouldn't really concern me. Like if he doesn't play Deuce, it might just be because he doesn't think.
Well, I mean, Malik Beasley gambles, but he still got minutes. So
also true, but not for Mike Brown. So not a concern that we need to have. But yeah, like I don't know. I think that again, like this is my point. Like I get why you're asking these questions, and I get why people have these questions. This is why I find this entire fucking conversation so uninteresting, because it's like, oh, I don't know. Like that's how to answer 90%. I don't know. I could tell you, like I could give you examples of stuff he did. He played fucking Trey Lyles at small ball 5 in the middle of a Golden State series. Well, did Tom Thibodeau ever do something like that? No. Does that make Mike Brown a better coach than Tom Thibodeau? I don't know. Maybe.
Well, while we're on the subject of coaching, one does have to ask, for recent events, were there any coaching? I don't know who the coach was of the Strickland team, but were there any coaching adjustments that could have been made for a team that scored 6 points? The lineups were stagnant. Were there adjustments that you would ask the coach of the Strickland team at the tournament to make?
Yeah, I think that maybe they should have had a practice before they played on the first game of the tournament. That might have been a good idea.
Can you talk about the tournament, what it was like? I think it'd be worthwhile for a lot of people who aren't there. If you could describe the whole atmosphere and what your experience was.
I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was great. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. It was a tournament. There were 8 teams. Obviously, there was Strickland, there was KFS, there was, Sean had a team. Other people had teams. I don't know. Not all of them were necessarily sites. It was just Nick's Twitter people, personalities, however you want to put it. Sean did a good job organizing it. It was very cool. They got off to a late start, but it didn't really matter. Once it got started, it was good. Hopefully they get real refs next year. Shout out to the refs who tried their best, but real refs would be good. I think that they were maybe a little too influenced at times by certain players and people complaining.
That means you gotta come on, watch your Avon tape, bro. Come on, you gotta that's on you. You gotta play the game, baby.
Yeah, I gotta try better maybe. Yeah, it was a fun time. I struggled to describe it much more than that. I would definitely recommend if you didn't go this year to go next year. I thought it was worth the price of admission. And again, yeah, Sean did a great job organizing it, and also, you know what? Shout out to Kazim and Christian Winfield. They both were there. They both did commentary. I thought they were hilarious. I think they called Alex Big Country at one point, which was funny. Uh, they were calling another guy George Niang, which was a little bit cruel. Um, so they were awesome. Ben Stiller came. That was really cool. But yeah, it's a fun time. All right, can we get back to actual basketball now? Does anybody need to, more
That was
more?
basketball, man. We got a question. We got to analyze your. Have you watched the film 55 times yet?
I'm never gonna watch the film. That's for
We
100%
can get back to
guarantee.
it.
Yeah, 100% guarantee is one thing I'm never gonna do is watch the fucking film of a game that ended 6-9. That's
Nice.
for sure. Very nice score that I never need to watch again. Uh, but yeah, no, seriously, shout out to Sean. Did a great job with it, and hopefully we're invited back next year and we can improve on our showing. One thing we will make sure not to do next year is only have staff on the team because, good God, that was a mistake. And seemed like nobody else really followed through on that. Oh, KFTV obviously had a team. Obviously, they won. Shout out to them.
We have one staff member next year. Just don't have it in the fucking fourth of July.
Yeah,
They need a point guard, right?
yeah, they need a point guard. Um, all right, so yeah, moving on from Tibbs and Mike Brown and this discussion about coaching because it's just there's no answers to be had. We're not going to get any answers at summer league either. Jordan Brink is coaching the Knicks summer league team.
Did you know we have
They
a guy named Lucas Skuka?
I
I hope he
did
makes the
know that.
fucking team.
I
Dude,
looked
that's
up his numbers. I don't think he's going to make the team. I'll put it that way.
Lucas
Uh,
Skuka. That goes
so
hard.
so yeah, we'll see what summer league is like. I haven't watched any second of summer league so far, and I think people that do are need other than watching your team summer league games, like if you're just fucking chilling watching it,
Why you attack
no.
Prez when he's not here to defend himself?
Well, he's not going to listen to this pod, so it doesn't matter. Um, all right. Well, you wanted to talk about the Hawks and the Magic, so I'm all yours for that.
Well, I think you seem to be higher on the Hawks than I do, and very low on the Magic. So I'm curious because I don't buy Porzingis' health. I don't think Trae Young is good. I actually like Jalen Johnson a lot. I will believe that Dyson Daniels can threaten defenses when I see it. I just don't buy that team as even better than the Pistons. They're like a worse version of the Pistons. I mean, I think Cade Cunningham is better than Trey. Um, if you got like Dallas Porzingis even or like healthy Porzingis, maybe you convince me. But and then I look at Orlando. I don't. Maybe we disagree on Bane, but I really like. If we could have made the Bridges trade for Bane, that's like not even close, right? This is a guy who's averaging 25 and 5. He can play make, he can shoot, he defends, he's strong, he can score at three levels. Um, I don't buy Paulo as a lead option, but I just think they're so much better. And I don't buy Trey as a lead option for some of the same reasons, right? I think he's better than Paulo, and he's a better playmaker. But it's the same thing. It's stagnant. It's not dynamic and all those things. And the rest of the team, like Orlando's going to be an elite defensive team. I think Bane doesn't take away from that at least, and maybe even adds to it, and really helps their spacing. I think I think the top two, whatever order you think are going to be the top two, but I think Orlando leapfrog Detroit. I think Detroit will be fourth. Atlanta still just seems to me like fun playing team that maybe takes a game in the first round.
So they're definitely not going to be a playing team. Fucking Celtics suck. The Pacers are going to be way worse.
Who's the Celtics' best player?
Jaylen Brown or Derek White. Their center rotation right now is Luke Garza. I would definitely. You're viewing this in such a myopic way. Like you can tell me you'd rather have Derek White than Trae Young. If I need somebody to be the best offensive player on my team, I'm taking Trae Young over Derek White. Fucking 600. Like every fucking time you give me that option, I'm taking
He's the
Trae Young.
Randall of point guards, though, right? It gives
Okay,
you
but
floor, but
that's okay. But it is they're the Celtics are not a championship team right now.
no,
So
but I think I fear them more than the Hawks. Like I'm
why?
not worried
Look
about
at
the
their
Hawks.
look. Have you looked at the Celtics roster lately?
Have you looked at the Hawks though? Who am I worried?
Yes,
Like, I'm worried
the
about
Celtics.
Jalen Johnson.
The
I'm
Hawks
worried about
roster is
Jackson
way better.
Daniels on Brunson. Agreed.
The Hawks roster is way better. Trae Young is better offensively than anybody that the Celtics have. He's a better offensive engine. Like there's no question about
And
this.
he's very heliocentric, and he's not
Okay,
Brunson proficient.
Trae Young last year, offensive EPM, 98th percentile. He was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12th. 12th in the league in offensive EPM, according to Dunks and Threes. He is consistently graded out as an elite offensive engine. Do I think that he has limitations to his game that aren't captured? But yes, I agree. I agree with you. I don't think that Trae Young, as your offensive engine, is likely to win a championship. I don't. I think some of that has to do with the fact that he is like, I mean, he makes Brunson look like God on defense in a lot of ways. But like, I don't. So I get the. To me, there's a different conversation that you're trying to have. Like, do I think the Hawks can win a championship? No. Do I think that Trae Young is an easy fit onto a team that can win a championship at some point in his career?
Fan
No.
might have been overstating it, but I don't. I think they're that level of team. It's just that he still be weak.
The Celtics centers next year are going to be like.
But you know what I'm saying? Like they're not more. They're the kind of team that in a normal year is a play-in team. They just will be maybe the 5 seed next year because the East has a lot of holes. A lot of
I think getting Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a pretty big deal for them. I actually have. I mean, he's a good player. I don't understand how this is controversial. I'm not like telling you Nickeil Alexander-Walker is amazing. I mean, you're talking to me about the Celtics.
No, I'm talking about the Magic more than anything else. But yeah, like
okay, but also like, but you just brought up this. You just said that you think the Hawks are going to be a play-in team. So that brings up the.
Let me rephrase that then. Let me rephrase that. They are going to be the level of the caliber of a standard play-in team. They might have the 5 seed because Indiana, Boston have injuries. We have no idea what's going to happen with Philadelphia with injuries, and everybody else just sucks. So I get that, but like, do I think they're better than Orlando, or do I?
They finished one game. They finished one game behind Orlando last year.
Yeah, and Orlando added Desmond. So I think that's
so did the Hawks.
What?
So did the Hawks. The Hawks didn't have Jalen Johnson.
I think Desmond Bane is way better than anything the Hawks added, and transformational in a way that.
I think
if you told me Porzingis was going to give you 70 games and be healthy in the playoffs, but I just watched that motherfucker get destroyed by the Knicks. I do not think that is the same player, a guy you can rely on. Compared to Desmond Bane, I do not give a fuck about Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Cool, you have another guy. We got Gershon Yabusele. That doesn't. No one is saying that's going to be transferred. That I view that.
I mean, I think it's going to be a pretty big fucking deal for the Knicks to get Gershon Yabusele. Yeah, I do.
You're talking about a 7th or 8th guy, that level of impact.
I mean, Walker might start for them.
Walker might start, but I don't think that's going to have. It would be like us. Like I think this
matters. It matters in comparison to their roster last year. Like, go look at the Hawks roster from last year because you're just
adding
like
Desmond Bane to already a very scary team that got a lot of injuries last year is a way bigger deal. Like, are you not that high on Bane?
Yeah, I just think the framing. I'm not that high on their entire fucking team, man. Like, what am I supposed to be high on with this team? Their best player is fucking bad. So that's a problem. I don't know. Well, who they think is their best player. So, that seems like a big problem to me. If your best player consistently is just like a dude who takes up a bunch of usage and can't get efficient shots and sucks ass on defense.
Were we in the same boat with Randall and we still had quite a bit of success?
I think Randall is one. I would say that Randall, the year that his first year, the Knicks offense wasn't very good. They won a lot of games because he got a bunch of usage, took a bunch of usage, and their defense was elite that year. So maybe that's a path for success for Orlando. But guess who did the Knicks lose to that year?
A very different Atlanta team.
I mean, I would say this Atlanta team. If the Porzingis thing is fair, and I think that's the biggest wild card. It's why I think that any notion of them as like they're going to win the East or they can challenge Cleveland or New York is like I think that's way too bullish. But I'm just not that optimistic about this Orlando team. I think that people are assuming Jalen Suggs is going to be healthy. I don't know why that's an assumption. I think people are assuming that Jalen Suggs was an outlier in terms of his shooting last year, and I'd push back on that, and I'd say the outlier of his shooting was his third year, which is the only year he shot well from three in his career. Um, I would suggest that they don't have a point guard. They don't have a half court initiator. That's a pretty big deal to me. Like,
well, you don't like Franz in that role?
I don't think Franz is anywhere near the level of half court initiator, pick and roll ball handler, primary guy that Trae Young is. And that's while I also think Trae Young is not like has like real flaws in that role, but he is eons.
I mean, do you
Eons
think
Franz.
Tyus Jones helps that? I understand. I
am not a Tyus Jones. I don't think Tyus Jones matters. I'll put it that way.
But he gives you what you're suggesting they're missing, right?
Right, but if Tyus Jones is playing, then who's sitting? So now Suggs is sitting?
Do they start Anthony Black?
No, I mean, presumably this year they're definitely not going to start Anthony Black. It would be Suggs, it would be Bane, it would be Franz, it would be Paolo, and pick a center.
You start Paolo at the 5.
Okay, so then now I'm definitely out on this team. Like,
I mean,
Bane is good. Bane is obviously very good. He definitely helps them. He definitely makes them better. Their spacing is still going to suck. Like, this is what I don't understand about this team. Everybody's like, oh my God, Bane is a perfect fit for them. Bane's a perfect fit for them. Okay, Bane's a perfect fit for them. Congratulations. They still have terrible spacing. Who else on the team are you worried about?
Let me pause you on that. Do you think spacing is more of a weakest link thing where if you have one guy like a Josh Hart, that kills everything? Or is it more of a one guy can transform everything? Because you have talked a lot about how Dante completely changed our spacing last year, right? Just even with Precious and Hartenstein playing together, which was the worst spacing you could imagine.
I'm not sure
Dante can give them that, right? So
I'm not sure Dante changed our spacing as much as Dante just it didn't matter. He could get up volume.
But that caused reactions from defenses, right?
But I think that only mattered. Like, it did not. It was not good. It didn't matter when Precious was in the starting lineup. That lineup was terrible offensively. But when they had an actual shooter at the 4, yeah, that changed. And yes, they were able to overcome the fact that Josh Hart doesn't shoot threes. But I think part of that is also that Isaiah Hartenstein's ability to handle the ball at the top of the key and run dribble handoffs and all that stuff, especially in the regular season, lets you get away a little bit with like, okay, the center can't shoot threes, but we can't quite just leave him out there, not defending him and sag off of him because he's capable with the ball in his hands, and that can open up Brunson, it can open up Dante, it can open up whoever the fuck. I think there's a difference there. I don't think Orlando has that at all. Like they literally have one good shooter, and you talked about weakest link. Like, who isn't a fucking weak link on this team in shooting other than Bane?
Well, Franz has shown proof of concept. Paolo will improve.
Franz has shown that he shot 29% from fucking 3, or whatever the hell it was last year. Paolo,
yeah, but he also has had a season where he's close to 40, hasn't he?
I don't believe so. I could be wrong on that. Paolo has shot 32% from 3.
Franz's career high is
32% from 3 last year. 32% from 3. Yeah. Well, congrats to Franz on the 36% from 3 on, well, I'm fairly sure was nothing approaching.
No, it was significant. It was 4.5. It was also 2 years ago, and it's been a downward trend. So.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I guess you could give Paolo is he started putting up more threes last year, so 32% on 8.6 threes per 100 possessions.
But a lot of those are unassisted, right? A lot of those are pull-ups, difficult shots.
Yeah, and that's great for him. He should maybe get good at the sport one day. That would help him a lot. Yeah, I don't know why I'm supposed to believe Desmond Bane changes the fortunes of this team offensively in a way that is drastic.
But maybe that helps the issues you're talking about, right? With shot selection, if you have a guy that settles the team down, like he's not a point guard, but he can add some of those connective elements. Even Josh Hart gives that to the Knicks. I think Desmond Bane is better in that role.
You think Josh Hart settles us down?
Actually, yeah. Like when he's not pushing and going crazy, he can like, especially when he's with Deuce, I think he gives that to the bench. Like he's
Look,
able to like run an actual set. He doesn't get tunnel vision. He's able to like keep his head up, and he knows what they're supposed to do. And I think Bane is better at that than him. So like, yeah, like I know what you're getting at. That Hart does a lot of stupid shit, but I think on that bench there was nobody else who could actually like run a set. Campaign was basically only capable of doing one thing: shoot a three or gets the floater. Deuce like had to put his head down and do everything he could just to not turn the ball over. Hart was the guy who could actually run stuff, and even though he's not a point guard, that connective piece can operate as a fulcrum for others to operate around.
um, all I will say is that one thing. There's a couple things here. One, Kentavious Caldwell Pope. Kentavious Caldwell Pope. For the 5 years, he played prior to getting to Orlando, this guy averaged 7.1 threes for 100 possessions. He shot 40.3% from three. Last year in Orlando, 7.
How old was he in Orlando last year?
31. The year before he got to Orlando, he shot 40.6. The year before that, 42.3. So he's not really like trending down as a percentage 3-point shooter. His year in Orlando, 7.2 threes per 100 possessions, 34.2% from three. He got hot in the back half of the year. Didn't really matter too much. I think that's worth noting that he suddenly declined in Orlando. Maybe he's not getting the same quality of threes. I don't know. Is that possible? If you look at a guy like Desmond Bane, for example,
crazy. So.
Well, that's my point. I agree. Yeah, playing off Jokic is awesome. I think playing off Ja Morant is better than playing off of Paolo or fucking Franz. I just flat out do. Yeah, like he's a better creator than those guys. And I know that, he didn't play as much and blah blah blah. Okay, well,
I do think Bane is better than Poe.
He obviously is better than Poe. There's no question. Desmond Bane's a really fucking good player. I'm not even. This is no shade on Desmond Bane. But I think that what he does, him individually provides them. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just not. I think that it's kind of overrated. Like not because he's bad. I'm not calling him bad. I'm saying that I don't believe in Desmond Bane changing the fortunes of the stream drastically.
If they added prime Klay Thompson, do you think they would still have spacing issues?
Yes.
Okay.
Like I don't. This is not about adding one shooter to me. To me, the entire fucking issue is that your two guys that you're banking on to be creators, not actually particularly good creators. Like I don't think Paolo is a particularly great creator. I don't think Franz is a particularly great creator, at least not in terms of the roles that they're being tasked to create in, right? As first and second options. Like, and I think that there's a fundamental misunderstanding of, like, people always look. Like I've seen a lot of people compare them, right? Okay, you got Paolo and Franz. Like, it's like they're going to be the next Tatum and Brown. And okay, let's just say that that's the case, that they are going to be the next Tatum and Brown. Tatum and Brown spent a lot of their career playing with like good point guards, and like it took them time to get to the point of we are capable of running high level offense. And I don't think Brown is even capable of running high level offense. I think he's good at being a number two.
I don't think either Franz or Paolo is on the level of Tatum as a passer.
I don't either, and I don't think they've really come close to him in anything, to be honest, at the NBA level.
I mean, Franz is a better defender, I'd say that. But
I'm not as sold on that. Definitely not younger Tatum. Maybe now because Tatum has to carry a lot more of the offensive burden, but I don't think so. So like I don't know, like that's their bet, and my bet is that I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't care that they got Tyus Jones. I don't think Tyus Jones is that good. I don't think he matters that much. Desmond Bane's a great get for them. He's a really good player. I have no problem with even the price they paid to get him, by the way. But I truly don't believe that he fixes everything that ails them. I think the issues with Atlanta are fair, and they're mostly to me just about Porzingis. Like, so Porzingis plays 40 games and he's middling and he's just constantly coming into the lineup and he's not quite himself. Then yeah, they're probably going to be worse than Orlando. If Porzingis plays 60 games, but he's good, and they can get maybe they have to rest him on back-to-backs and they misses like a couple of 6-7 game stretches here and there. Like, if that's what it is, I think they'll be better than Orlando because I buy the rest of their team more so than I buy Orlando, and I'm not even that high on Atlanta. Like, I think that they're probably like a 40 in their best case. I mean, I guess their best case is a little bit different, but I think their over under is like 46 and a half that I saw. That seems about the number I would be like, yeah, I don't quite want to bet that. So that sounds about right. Orlando's is 51 and a half. I think that's ridiculous. What they're going to be fucking 10 wins better because they added Desmond Bain
Well,
and
they won't have. I mean, Paolo and Franz were both hurt mostly.
I don't think Paolo being hurt is a very good argument for why they didn't like that.
Franz
Helps
is hurt
them.
too.
Yes, Franz was hurt. Great. Suggs was hurt too. Guess what? Suggs is always hurt. Like Bain's also he's a guy who's missed a lot of games. This is like they've added guys that miss a lot of games. So just like Porzingis is a health risk. I mean, obviously Bain is not the same level of health risk as Porzingis. Don't get it wrong, but I don't think that he's not. I mean, he is a health risk. Like he's not a guy that's just constantly good to go. And I think we can also say to some degree, like, look at Paolo has what? Paolo has missed time. He missed 40. He missed what? 36 games last year. Prior to that, he'd only missed looks like 12 games in his entire career. So maybe he bounces back. How much does that really move the needle? I guess I'm a little less optimistic about that than other people are. I just don't actually think that Paolo is that good. I'm sorry. Like I don't know what to say. Like I think he could be really good, but I don't think he was last year.
So I mean, I guess the question is, we have both evaluated a player who played 3 seasons and was 22 after his third season, and showed glimpses of high usage and low efficiency. A lot of people were high on him. I think even me and you were. I guess is Banchero, RJ. What I would push back on that, his true shooting percentage was never as bad as like RJ, and it's actually improved. He's at 55, which is still subpar, but it is respectable, especially given his usage, which is 33.6 last year. Again, most of that was without Franz. In terms of the shooting, you talk about 3-point percentage. Half of his threes were pull ups. So with a guy like Gabe,
what did he shoot on them?
That I don't. I can pull that up. His overall was so on pull ups. I imagine it was bad.
Well,
I imagine it was sub 30, right? Because I would imagine he shot better in catch and shoot. But he'll have more catch and shoot opportunities. Ostensibly playing next to Bain, and I think the one thing you didn't mention is that like the Magic were the best defensive team in the league by a large margin.
No, they weren't. OKC was the best defensive team in the league.
All right, they were number 2. They were a pretty elite defensive team. I think I saw. Maybe I was looking at like the last 15 games.
No, they definitely. It doesn't. They've definitely been an elite defensive team. Just I was just saying they're not number 1. I know that for sure.
They were. I mean, they're the best in the East, right?
Yep, they were second in the league. Yep.
So at that point, you're looking at. That's something I don't buy that from Atlanta. Dyson Daniels is great. Capella's washed. We'll see what they can get out of Okongwu. But I don't buy that there's some, and I think that matters more. There's something I know the Magic are going to do elite. You can rip on Paulo if he's going to take bad shots and get you 55 TS ugly on that team. You live with that. That is Randall Ball, and the Knicks made that work. And their defense has never been as good as.
I'm just not going to believe in a team that has Paolo as their primary initiator in the playoffs.
He's also 22.
Okay? He's a primary initiator. I'm not giving him. I don't care, man. If you're going to get all NBA comparisons, I'm not holding your hand.
No, but I'm saying is like, am I like with that defense? Do I think it's good enough? That's a different conversation. You know what I mean, I'm not saying he's all NBA. I'm not even saying he's better than. I really don't like Trae Young, but whatever you want to say, like Paolo shot 33% on pull-ups, so he's actually probably worse on catch and shoot to your point. But I think a good coach would move him off ball more if he can do that and utilize Franz more on ball. You do need to be a little bit creative on offense, but they play elite defense. Like I don't think there's anything to write home about Detroit's offense. Like, what fucking Cade? Like is he that much better than Paolo?
I would
But
take
people
pretty
respect.
easily over Paolo. Pretty easily.
I would take him over Paolo. Is he that much better? I wasn't that impressed with him against us.
I mean, I'm never impressed with Paolo.
I have been impressed with him in
So
playoff
I,
games.
I don't. I would.
I just don't care about Atlanta at all. I care about like Jalen Johnson is the one guy if you're in Atlanta. Like if the Knicks have not figured out a way to stop Trae Young by this point, then Mike Brown does need to fucking go. The day it happens, the day they lose to fucking Atlanta, he should be gone. I will say that. The day they have to go to fucking 6 games against Atlanta, he should be gone. I don't care about that team at all. Orlando, I can see being a pain in the ass to play.
That's where I just would disagree. Like, why would I be worried about a team that can't score in the half court?
Well,
Like
Detroit couldn't really score in the half court, and they
right,
pushed
we shouldn't have been worried about them either. Like that was one of the reasons we were like, wow, this is a terrible coaching job. So why the fuck would I care that Orlando? Why?
Desmond Bane would be the second best player on Detroit easily, and he's Orlando's third best player.
But we're not talking about Detroit as like Detroit's not really a concern to me either. So I'm just saying, like, I don't think that either of these teams is a meaningful threat. I would always much rather play the team that has a guy that can't, like, they don't have a good pick and roll ball handler. That's the simplest way to put it.
So you're less scared, I guess, of a team.
I'm always gonna be more scared of teams.
Defense first. I'm scared of defense first teams, I guess. Like
I just don't get how that's like. Unless you're the Thunder, you don't win in the modern NBA unless you can score. Like the Pacers are. I know that their defense picked up. I still think they're a pretty thoroughly middling defense. They win because their offense is that potent and they constantly put pressure on you. And like the lesson you to learn from that is keeping the fucking scoreboard going is the most important thing in basketball. Unless you have a team, a very very rare team like Oklahoma City, that can just lock up constantly and at a level that is nearly historic.
And in transition, right? I mean, because if you're not a good offensive team, they're also running off of misses.
Like, is Orlando like a historic defense? Like, I don't think so. Like they, just look at them in the postseason last year. Forget the offense. Their defense was not particularly good. Like, and that was against Boston, who doesn't have some amazing God mode pick and roll ball handler or something. Like, we know what Boston does. And I'm not saying Boston's necessarily easy to defend, but like, if you're this amazing defensive team, I think it's fair to expect more than whatever the hell they did in that series. And they didn't. Like, they just were not good in that series. That's what it is.
They're a much better team now, though, right?
We'll see.
Last year. Now they lost their best defenders. So
yeah, I mean, I'm just saying we'll see. We'll see with Orlando how much better they are. I'm just not as bullish on this entire thing as much as you because, or as much as
very bearish in Atlanta. I don't buy that shit at all. Unless I think Jalen Johnson could take a leap. He's 24. That's the kind of age the Knicks have targeted. So if that guy makes like a full, I'm 25, 10, and 5.
My thing is like there's a few things. I think
does change things. I will say
there's a few things. I think they're the Hawks. I think they led the league last year in terms of shot quality from 3. That was and look, that some of that is maybe you get great shots because teams are like
shot quality use like the wide open stuff, or is it just
I don't know how it's however they judge the points per shot. I know that opponent or defender proximity is part of that calculation. So yeah, some of that might be just because teams are like, well, they can't shoot, so we're just going to leave the fucking guy open. So I don't think that tells you everything, but I do think getting a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's a 38% 3-point shooter, getting a guy like Luke Kennard, these are regular season, especially Luke Kennard is very specifically a regular season thing, by the way. So throwing that out there. But Luke Kennard, who's like a 44% 3-point shooter, seems like it might matter. Porzingis, yeah, it's like whatever the fucking guy sucks at, he is particularly good at that. Trae hasn't played with the stretch 5 before. I'm interested to see what that looks like. I think they have the ability to go double big. If Porzingis is right, they have the ability to go double big with him and Okongwu, which I think is a pretty cool lineup potentially. Uh, I think the Dyson Daniels thing, I'm pretty bullish on his trajectory. Not sure that he is going to be a great 3-point shooter, but I do like the fact that he has shown an ability to get into the paint consistently. Can he build off of that even more? Would be interesting to see. Um, and then, I think that I like Quinn Snyder. Like I think that he is a creative offensive mind, and I think he's gotten a lot out of a roster the last year, especially that was not fully fleshed, that was not well rounded, that had real gaps. I think he got the most out of it last year that you could reasonably expect. And I don't know if I would say that about Jamal Mosley. I think Jamal Mosley is really good at coaching defense, and that's about where it ends. I don't really trust his identification of players. There was a lot of way too much Anthony Black running point as far as I'm concerned last year. Um, is that stuff that persists? I don't know. And yeah, I mean that's just where it is. I genuinely just think that Trae Young being able to run offense matters in the playoffs in a way that I believe in more than Orlando. As far as what team would I feel like posed a greater threat? I just think it's Trae Young because if a guy can run pick and roll offense at a high level, yes, you can turn him over. Yes, he's small and tiny, and you can take advantage of him defensively. I'm not, obviously he's not a perfect player to say the least. Um, but as far as the ability to, can he? I mean, we've seen Trae Young even a couple years ago go into Boston Garden, right? And they pushed the Celtics 6 games. So he's not he's had playoff moments and not just against the Knicks. I think that's worth mentioning. And you know, he's to me just a superior offensive talent than anybody Orlando has at their disposal.
I'm not that in onto his talent in a playoff series. I would rather bet on Orlando's defense than bet on Trae Young in a playoff series.
Yep. Well, fortunately for me, I'm not going to be betting on either. But yeah, I'm just the entire Orlando thing. I don't think this roster is nearly as good as people think it is. I think their centers are still pretty uninspiring. It's still Wendell, it's still Goga. I don't know what
You
Giants.
were a Wendell guy.
I was a Wendell guy. It's been fucking 8 years. It's not really happening.
He's a
Jonathan,
solid player though.
he's okay. He's okay.
And they have Isaacs too, right?
But he's there doing stuff. Not sure what, but he's definitely doing stuff on the
Well,
roster.
his side is winning everything, so you might imagine that he's gonna get some of that luck.
Maybe. Didn't seem to work out for him too well this past year, though. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, the Celtics suck, dude. You're just wrong on that. They're going to be terrible. They're awful.
I think they'll make the playoffs.
I think they're a playing team. But who knows? I think the playing could be whatever. Miami, unironically, Miami getting Norman Powell might actually matter as far as clinching a playoff berth versus.
Didn't Zach Lowe said that they're one of the top 3 teams in the East?
I listened to that pod. I think people were taking it out of context. It sounded more like he was like, "These are the 3 teams I like." Which one of them was Orlando. So congrats, you and Zach Lowe are on the same page. But he was just kind of like he was just saying he could see a world where the Heat were better than anybody else in the East, which I don't actually think is that insane because the East is not. I mean, it's just not that.
So you're saying Washington is going to give us their pick next year?
Crazier things have happened. I'm not optimistic about that, considering that it feels like they're constructing their roster with the express purpose of not having the US. That was a good move for them, though, getting Cam Whitmore. I like that. We'll see. I'm not as bullish on what he's going to become as other people, but I do think it's a good move for them specifically to take a chance on a guy like that. We'll see. I mean, the other thing we didn't talk about is we could just do it briefly. There's been reporting that Marcus Smart might get a buyout from Washington. The Knicks have had interest in Marcus Smart going back to the 2023 offseason. 2020, so summer 2023. I would probably be very okay with getting Marcus Smart on a buy-in. And then I guess the other final thing we should mention, which ties into this, is that the Knicks could potentially afford Marcus Smart on a veteran's minimum because Gershon Yabusele's contract came in at slightly below the full taxpayer mid-level exception, which gives them the room under the second apron to sign one more actual vet. So I don't know if you have thoughts on Marcus Smart. I thought he looked pretty spry still in his minutes in Washington last year. I do think that the Knicks could use one more ball handling type player. I like his defensive versatility. I think he's more of a wing defender now than a point of attack defender, but that ability to switch is still there. So he'd be an intriguing pickup for me. Aside from him, the other one I like is GP2. But if Marcus Smart were to get bought out, he would pretty easily be the guy that I would want the most on a veteran's minimum.
Look, if you're talking about a spry Marcus Smart, that's an addition no matter what. Do I think they need it? I mean, I'm not high on his playmaking, especially at this point in his career. So if you're playing him next to Deuce, your defense would be ostensibly really good. You're still missing what you were missing from your bench. Can he play next to Brunson? Well, now you're not going 5 out, but I think that's something that gives you that Clarkson didn't, where you can play him next to Brunson. I don't know if he can be a lead guard, which gives me some pause there. But if it's the vet min and you have a guy who has versatility in lineups, is a plug-in, I mean, bodies, right? Bodies in depth that can give you good minutes that don't compromise you really on either end. Even on offense, like Smart is not really worse than Hart as a shooter. You can do a lot worse than that. My guess is that he's probably some degree of washed, but he's going to execute his job on defense. He gives you he can be a pest for a few minutes, and some of those sometimes you need that, right? Like just get in someone's, if there was someone we could send in, and we did have that person last year, but Tibbs decided not to, but to just disrupt Halliburton a little bit, we would have taken that, right? Or for him, he can do that to Cade or to Tatum, right? So, it gives you that. It gives you somebody who can organize. That's what I said. If I'm going to defend Bane, right, is being able to get guys into sets. I'll say something about Smart. I don't know if he's like a lead guard as much, and I don't know like the way you phrase the ball handler. I don't know if I'm there at any point in his career, but especially now. But it's a vet min. Like I don't know where he gets minutes from. Like how does that work with Clarkson? Do you play all three together? That's a Mike Brown question, but I think it's a no-brainer, and you figure it out if he's available for the vet
min. Yeah, that's what I'm kind of with too. All right, I think that's a good place to end this. Stacy, let's see where they can find you and plug anything that you'd like to plug.
You can find me at StacyPadden89. Nothing to plug. Shout out to Shwin and the Strickland basketball team for participating in the first next Twitter tournament. Shitting on you guys earlier, but in all seriousness, it was cool that you guys participated, and proud of everyone who took part. And hopefully this becomes a thing. So, yeah.
I have nothing to plug, so I will just plug all the work at Strickland. Again, thanks to Sean for putting together the tournament. That was really cool. And shout out to everybody that was on the team, even though we didn't get the job done. All right. That is our show for today. Again, hope everybody has a great week. And I'll see you on Friday. Peace.